Hey guys, we're back with another one. It is so crazy to me that I am sitting here filming my first monthly wrap-up for the month of May. Wrap-ups and TBR videos are my favorite things to watch on YouTube. I literally look forward to the end of the month because I'm like, oh my gosh, all my favorite booktubers and bookstagrammers are going to start posting about like what they read and their reviews and what they're going to read in the next month. These are my favorite videos to watch, followed closely by a good book haul and a good spend the day with me book shopping video. But let's address the elephant in the room because we always talk about it in every single video. It has been obscenely hot here in Connecticut. I mean, it hit 93 the other day. It's really hot and it's really humid. And I turn all my fans off while I'm filming because they're a bit loud on camera. So, as we discussed in the previous video, 80s hair is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And as it gets hotter and more humid, it only gets more aggressive. So, we are going to embrace the 80s hair and we're gonna roll with it. So I don't know if any of you are feeling the humidity and the heat in your states, but I'm certainly feeling it here in Connecticut, and we are going to bless and release it and move on. So let's get into what I read in May. Okay guys, like I said, I read 8 books, a total of 8 books in the month of May. That's a pretty average reading month for me. I read between like 6 and 10. So 8 is right smack dab in the middle of what I usually do. And I actually had a fairly good reading month. I had some really high highs. I had a couple that were kind of meh, and some even for surprising reasons. It's not even necessarily always, the quality of the book. And one thing I want to say when I'm doing my wrap-ups and giving my opinions is the great thing about reading is that we're all entitled to an opinion. We all have different tastes. We all like different things. You are going to love books that sometimes I don't care for, and I'm going to love books that sometimes you don't care for. And as long as we're reading, that's really all that matters. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it. So, the first book I read, I started on my Kindle. I try to read at least 2 Kindle Unlimited books a month because I do pay for Kindle Unlimited and I kind of want to make it feel like worth it. So in my brain, I justify that if I read 2 Kindle Unlimited books a month, that means they're like $5 a piece, which is pretty standard. So the first one I went into was Black Ties and White Lies by Kat Singleton. I gave this book a 3.5 stars. I'm actually going to pull up my Goodreads because on Goodreads, you cannot rate things like half stars. So sometimes I have to round up or round down. So if you do follow my Goodreads, it's going to be in the description below. I did round it down to a 3 stars on Goodread. So this book was good. It did kind of start getting me out of I wasn't in a slump. I could feel myself getting into one. And this kind of brought me out of it because it was a really entertaining read. Here's my thing. Grumpy Sunshine is kind of a tricky trope for me, which this was a Grumpy Sunshine. Grumpy Sunshine, I'm a bit picky about. First of all, it's done a lot. So I feel like for it to blow my mind, it has to be really unique, a really unique perspective, something really different. And for me, the grumpy male main character in this book kind of walked and sometimes crossed a very thin line between like not cute, grumpy, protective, and like straight up controlling, not nice. He was kind of an asshole. And that to me, I just can't 100% get behind it. There was this one scene, if I'm remembering correctly, where he like forced her into his limo, like physically forced her to get into his limo. I didn't love that. Like, it's hard for me to start like swooning if I fundamentally don't like the guy. And I just feel like he was super possessive, he was super controlling, and dominated our female main character. And she was swooning for what a great guy he was. And he did have redeeming qualities. But for me, I was like, this is like walking a thin line of abusive, and it wasn't a dark romance. When you go into something as a dark romance, you're like, this might get a little dicey morally, right? Like you're expecting and looking for like that morally gray relationship. This isn't. This is a romance. It's a workplace, grumpy sunshine relationship. And it was hard for me to fully connect with the characters because the female main character was so weak and the male main character was so dominating, just kind of like preying on her weakness, and she just kind of went along with it. So I had trouble connecting with the characters, but the story was good, the writing was good, the spice was good. I liked it. I couldn't go to that 4. So I give it a 3.5. I rated it a 3 on Goodreads because I just couldn't round it up to a 4. So that was my first book. After that, I went into A Court of Silver Flames by Miss Sarah J. Maas. I took forever to finish the ACOTAR series because the thought of leaving this world and this series, it legitimately devastated me. Like, I need the 6th book. I need it. I love this series so much. The 3rd book, A Court of Mist and Fury. The 4th book, A Court of Wings and Ruin. And A Court of Silver Flames. No. Wait a minute. Rewind. The 2nd book, A Court of Mist and Fury. The 3rd book, A Court of Wings and Ruin. And then now the 5th book. It's separated by one little novella, which honestly, I don't really give novellas 5 stars because I don't think they're intent. This is the 5th book. 5 stars. Ate it up. I literally purposely read this slow because I didn't want to leave it. I just didn't want to finish it. I was having so much fun with it. This is the story of Nesta and Cassian. And I don't want to give away too much because it is the 5th book in the series. So I don't want to spoil anything for what happens in books 1 through 4. But I love Sarah J. Maas is a genius. Her works are masterpieces. No one writes like her. No one can describe a setting, a landscape like her. The relationships that she builds in her books are so real. And you just get so connected to them and you root for them. You root for her characters. And this book is just truly a masterpiece. This was so good. If you made me choose between Akamoth, Akawar, or Akasoth, I think that is A Court of Silver Flames, I still think I'm going with Akawar was my favorite. A Court of Wings and Ruin. I really, really think it was, but this might be a close second. Is that an unpopular opinion? Because I feel like A Court of Mist and Fury is like everyone's cult favorite, but this is a masterpiece. It's beautiful. And she's a thick girl. She's like, almost 800 pages. So I loved this book. It was so good. Please go read ACOTAR. Fight through ACOTAR. Because I think I only gave A Court of Thorns and Roses 3 stars. And I told my friend who was obsessed with the series, I was like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, it was all right, but I just don't know if I can read 5 straight books of It Was All Right. She was like, Lindsay, trust me. Keep going. It gets better. And she was so right. Guys, fight your way through ACOTAR. Move on to Akamoth. Keep going in the series. It's 5 star. It's 5 star. It's a 5-star series. Read this book. It's so good. Anyways, after that, I went on and I read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This book's adorable. This book is about Viv, who is an orc. She spent her life battling. She was in wartime and, treasure hunting, I think, a bit in between. And she's just grown tired of it. She's exhausted. She doesn't want to live that life anymore. So she finds the city or the town of Thune and opens a coffee shop. But the one problem is no one in the town has ever heard of coffee. I believe in the book, coffee is like something developed by gnomes. So unless you've gone to like a gnome coffee shop, you've never heard of it. So Viv the orc opens up a coffee shop in the city of Thune and wants to introduce their residents to coffee. There is a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of action, but it's very low stakes, very calm. After the heart-wrenching experience that you'll get from reading the ACOTAR series, I needed something to sit down and just zen out to, relax. It's relatively short. I think it's like 330 pages of low stakes, very heavily descriptive writing, sometimes a little bit too much, sometimes a little repetitive, but overall I thought it was really cute. I gave this book a 3.5 stars on Goodreads. I believe I might have bumped it up to a 4. Hold on one second. Ooh, my camera. I think I might have bumped it up to a 4 on Goodreads. I didn't. I put it out as a 3 as well. So it was cute. It was good. I mean, the only thing that kind of kept me from bumping it up to a 4 probably was that, like I said, it did get a bit repetitive. So for a classic example, it starts out with her opening this coffee shop and her friend makes a sign that says like, oh, you know, coffee, whatever. I forget what their money was called, but like $3, right? Well, then a couple of chapters later, they decide to start selling like cinnamon rolls. So then she rewrites the sign and it's like a half a page of like all the information for the store. Coffee, $3, cinnamon rolls, $2. So then a couple chapters later, they decide to introduce iced coffee. And then she redoes the sign and you have to read all of it. And it says like iced coffee, $3, crescent rolls, $2, iced coffee, $3. And it's just, that's kind of a good description of the writing. It's just very repetitive. And every single time something new pops up in the story, he'll spend paragraphs, if not pages, re-describing everything you've already read. So when that did happen, honestly, when they added something to the menu, I just kind of like skipped that page and moved on because like I get it and I'm not going to buy it, so I don't need to know how much it was. But overall, super cute, very low stakes, cute writing, a little bit of mystery in there, a little bit of action in there, very cute. I would say read it. All right, after that, this is where it gets interesting, guys. I went into community board. If you follow me on Instagram, you think that I DNF'd this because I actually put up a post on Instagram that said, I can't do it. I'm DNFing it. I can't. The thing about me is that I'm not capable of DNFing. I mean, I think I've DNF'd one book. It was The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa, just not for me. And that was like, I would happily DNF'd, not for me. However, I did not love the writing of this book. I could not stand, actively disliked the female main character and really the only main character of this book. Finished the book, went back in, had to figure out what was going on because I just thought maybe it all comes together. Maybe I'm missing something. It didn't. I'm looking at I track my reads. I'm looking at my rating and I guess I gave it a 2.25. Honestly, looking back on it and as I sit here, I think it's maybe like a 1.5 or a 2. I did finish it. It didn't come together. I finished the book hating her. She's whiny. She's not likable. She makes bad decisions. She doesn't hold herself accountable. I do not love this book. Also, Tara Conklin very much channeled Sally Rooney in this book. She doesn't use quotation marks in her dialogue. It made it very distracting and hard for me to read. It's so funny how something that small can just throw you off as a reader so much. And I have realized that writing, which means that Sally Rooney is probably just not for me. The writing style it really actively bothered me when I was reading it. And I can't get behind this one. But if you can. This book is about a girl whose fiance or husband, I think husband, cheated on her. And she decided that she needed to come back and spend some time at her parents' house and just get away from the situation. But when she got there, she found out that her parents had actually moved and didn't tell her because they didn't want her to be upset that they had left her childhood home. So she gets there and her parents actually had upped and moved to Arizona. And she decides that she's just going to stay there anyways. And it is a story that really does delve into depression because she goes into what I interpreted as a depression. And it was an isolationist depression where she didn't leave the house. She only ate the canned products that she could find in her parents' pantry. She wouldn't answer the door. Her parents sent a neighbor over to check on her. She refused to answer the door, but the neighbor left her like food on the front steps and she like took it and ate it and then was just generally discourteous because she didn't even wash the Tupperware and like put it outside. Like her mom even at one point wrote her an email and was like, please, like the next door neighbor is my friend and she's left you several meals and she knows you're eating them because you take them. They're not there the next day, but like, can you please wash her Tupperware and just put it outside on the deck so she could take it? And she couldn't even be bothered to do that. And I don't know. I'm ranting. I just found her generally dislikable. She wasn't enjoyable for me to read about. I didn't root for her. I didn't like the story. Basically what happens is during her depressive isolation, she gets super involved with reading a online message board that they have for her parents' community. And yeah, I think the point is that reading these messages and interacting with a very strange group of people, like, kind of brings her out of her shell. But I didn't root for her. I didn't care if she came out of her shell. I didn't like her. I didn't particularly like the writing style. This one is a no for me. So I did not DNF it, though. If you follow my Instagram, you think I did, but I didn't. I finished it. And I wish I hadn't, realistically. Okay. Moving on, I went back onto my Kindle and I read Scandalized by Ivy Owens. This book really took me by surprise. I went into it because after coming off of Community Board, which I really didn't care for, I wanted to go in and read like a cute little romance, just something to like bring me back up after reading a book about so much depression and misery and miserableness. I was like, I need to read just like a cute, nice book about love, like a romance where I root for the girl. I want them to fall in love. And I just picked this book on my Kindle thinking this was going to be a cute, easy romance read. And I actually ended up loving it. I gave this a 4.25 stars and a 4 on my Goodreads. It was adorable. This book, you want to know what really, really impressed me about this book? It was so realistic and it was so maturely written. And after I read it and I thought the writing was so mature, I dug into a little bit about this author who is Ivy Owens. And it turns out that Ivy Owens is a pseudonym for none other than Miss Lauren Billings, who is one half of Christina Lauren. If you don't know, all books written by Christina Lauren are written by two best friends, Christina and Lauren is Lauren Billings, who is writing under this pseudonym of Ivy Owens. So when I read that, I was like, of course I liked it. And of course I was very impressed by the writing. It's great. So if you haven't read Scandalized, basically what it's about is our main female character, Georgia, aka Gigi, is flying home one day when her flight gets canceled and she's kind of stranded in this airport. She happens to look up and recognizes a man as her old best friends. They've kind of like had a falling out. They haven't talked in a while, but this is her older brother who she's always kind of had like a little bit of like a childhood crush on. And it's about them. It's about their story after both their flights get canceled and them reconnecting. And it just is written in a way that I wish more romances would be written like, I should say. It's so maturely written. They didn't have any stupid, immature miscommunication fights. They didn't have any corny, cringy banter that you literally find yourself being like, no one talks like that. It didn't exist. All their conversations were so normal, so mature, so well thought out, just genuine conversations that you have with someone you're either, sleeping with or dating or what have you, interacting with. Was very refreshing to read a mature dialogue amongst two adults in a romance novel. I was really, really impressed by it. I loved both of the main characters. I really liked them. I thought they were very likable people who made good decisions, who didn't turn me off in any way. So I definitely think that this book was well written. It's obviously by a very experienced author I actually am sitting here thinking now that I definitely need to step up my game and get into some Christina Lauren books because I've actually never read anything by them. They have like a whole section on my bookshelf, but I've never picked one up. And I'm thinking I have to because Lauren Billings' writing, aka Ivy Owens' writing in this book, really impressed me and was absolutely my style. So I'm really thinking I will like it. There was spice in this book. It was really well done. Spice is always just slightly cringy. Like there were parts of the book I was reading on my Kindle and I was kind of like holding my Kindle kind of like this when I was out in public reading it. I was like, because I didn't want anyone to see over my shoulder. I don't think anyone would do that. I don't think anyone actually reads over your shoulder, but I didn't want anyone to think that I was reading something super smutty, but it was really well done. I really liked this book. It was cute. Yeah, in conclusion, the characters were really well developed. They were really realistic. Typically in a romance book, there's always that one, like half of the main characters that's just like irks me. Super immature, super unrealistic, makes really horrible decisions, drives people away like in ways that are so mean that to me, like it should be irredeemable. And that didn't happen in this book. It was just like very realistic, very considerate. I don't know. I can't say enough about it. I really think that if you're looking for a really well-written romance, cute story, cute characters that you're really going to connect to, you're going to root for them because they're two good people, go ahead and pick up Scandalized by Ivy Owens, aka Lauren Billings. So, okay. The next book I went into was also on my Kindle. This is when I was doing, I believe it was my reading 200 pages a day. No, it was swapping my phone time for reading. And I believe. And I went into this after Scandalized because I read better at night on my Kindle. It has the backlight. I also read faster. So I went back to back Kindle and I read Heart of the Raven Prince by Tessania Odette. This book I ended up giving a 3-star. It's a Cinderella retelling in a really interesting way because it's not just a girl with her stepmom and evil stepsisters goes to a ball and falls in love with the prince. She threw in vampires and sirens and fae and really brought in like a pretty immersive world and a really unique, immersive new angle to Cinderella, which I really, really liked. The writing was pretty good. I actually went into this thinking it was YA. And I don't think it is after reading it because there was like a decent amount of spice in it. Not super graphic, but like more than I think would be appropriate or advertised to young readers. So I don't think it was YA. I always kind of thought it was. But anyways, it was really interestingly written. I liked the world that she created. I liked the characters and all the extra things she brought on. But my main gripe with this book was that it was so unnecessarily long. This book was almost 500 pages, or I think it might have been slightly over 500 pages. And there was no reason for that. There wasn't. It was a Cinderella retelling. You get the basic gist of the story. The reason this book was 500 pages was because it was so repetitive. And also, like, I felt, the way that I read it, I felt that it went off kind of on like tangents. Like you'd be introduced to these character habits or these storylines that would be brought up. It would just kind of be thrown out there and it seemed like it was going to go somewhere, like something was going to happen and it was going to be pertinent to the book or going to apply to the book somewhere. And then it just didn't. Like it would just die, or it was like randomly thrown in somewhere else in the book and then you just never heard about it again. I just felt like she started a lot of plot lines and then never finished them, or started like, I don't know, just talked about for chapters about how much this character loves something. And then it kind of like didn't play into the rest of the book. So I was like, why did I need to know that? That was 35, 40 pages of the book that I just never touched upon again. Like I just didn't need to know about it. I don't know. I found it very wordy and not in a poetic, descriptive way, more in like almost a frustrating way. That I sat there and I was just like, you could have easily cut 200 pages out of this book and the story would have been the same. But like I said, I sound like I'm being harsh, but I'm not trying to, because I actually I did enjoy it. I could see the appeal. I could see how a lot of people would like this book. And obviously fairy tale retellings are fundamentally easy to read because you get the basic gist of the story. It's an easy transition into fantasy because there's not an intensely intimidating amount of world building. It's Cinderella. If you've seen Cinderella, you get it world built, and then you can kind of like add the extra stuff in as you go. So I'm not trying to be negative and say don't read it. I think it just wasn't particularly my writing style. And I actually went into this book, Heart of the Raven Prince, not realizing it was the second one. Like 2 chapters in, I found out that I actually was reading book 2 in the Entangled with Fae series. And the first book is called Curse of the Wolf King, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So when I was on like chapter 2 or 3, when I found this out, I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go back and read Curse of the Wolf King. And now there's A Taste of Poison, which is a Snow White retelling, and there's A Kiss of the Selkie, which is a Little Mermaid retelling. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a series I'll get into. And I'm not saying I won't read it. I just don't know if the general writing style is for me. But if you like very, very, very almost overly descriptive, like if that's something that you're able to kind of zen out to, go for it. Just wasn't for me. So moving on. My hero.
I was a good sport.
Good, I'm glad. Thank you.
John? Was I a good sport?
I'm glad you were a good sport. Thank you, bud. Okay, coffee break. Okay, so after Heart of the Raven Prince, I wanted to jump into my first Lynn Painter. Just like Christina Lauren, I have a whole section of my bookshelf that's dedicated to all of Lynn Painter's books, but I had never picked one up. So I went into Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter, and this was adorable. Adorable. So this book follows our female main character, Olivia. She's kind of down on her luck. She kind of has bad luck in general. Everything kind of goes wrong. She kind of screws things up a lot. And she ends up moving into her brother's apartment that he lives in with his roommate, who is his friend from school, Colin Beck. He was kind of like the good looking, like jock guy, I think, that everyone kind of wanted when they were younger. So she moves in for 1 month with her brother and his roommate while she kind of gets back on her feet. And while she's living in their apartment, she gets a random text message from a number she doesn't know that just asks her, "What are you wearing?" And she tells them, like, "You are not supposed to be talking to me. I don't know who you're talking to, but I don't know you. This must be a wrong number." And they start texting back and forth anyways. And it ends up being a very, very cute little relationship. And then she gets the surprise of her life about the wrong number. So it was very cute. And this is a classic example of kind of what I was saying before when I was talking about how unlikable the female main character in Community Board was, for a lot of different reasons. Olivia in Mr. Wrong Number is probably one of the most immature characters I've ever read in my life. She's immature, she's bumbling, she's clumsy, but it doesn't come across as unlikable or annoying or frustrating. It comes across as like quirky and cute, and you like her and you kind of roll your eyes and you're like, oh, Olivia. Like, we all have that person in our life, that just somehow always makes the wrong decision, is somehow always in crisis, is super immature, but they're lovable and they're cute and they're quirky, and you want to protect them, and you want them to get out of their own way. But realistically, they kind of live in chaos. And that was Olivia in this book. She was likable, she was quirky, and I don't know, you just kind of read the book, and once again, this is the classic example of you rooted for her. Like, you wanted everything to work out for Olivia, as opposed to the main character in Community Board that you didn't like, you didn't care if things worked out for her, you didn't feel bad for her. And this was totally different. So she was really adorable. The main male characters, her brother and Colin, were really, really cute. The banter between her brother Josh and Olivia was really funny, because they just had that like typical brother-sister relationship where they just ragged on each other a lot, and he was constantly like making fun of her, making like little snide remarks when she did things, or like drawing attention to how much of a mess she was, and I found that really funny. Also, this book is over 300 pages, but a lot of it is text messages, so it goes really, really quickly. I mean, you would sit down and before you knew it, you were done with 100 pages of the book. I really liked it. I read it really fast. The writing style is for me. The banter is for me. The dialogue is for me. The text messages were for me. I really liked it, and I highly recommend it. I think I ended up giving this 4.25 stars, and I probably gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because I don't think I gave it a 5-star. But this was a solid 4.2 stars, and I really think that I'm going to love delving into more Lynn Painter because I really liked her style. All right. Last but not least, after I finished Mr. Wrong Number, I dove right into the second book of the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, which is called Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. If you've never heard of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is the first book, you follow the female main character Pip as she tries to solve the disappearance of a girl from her hometown named Andy for a capstone project, which I'm pretty sure that's like a final project for school. I'm not sure. I actually like reading about this because although Pip is from the town of Fairview, which is not a real place in Connecticut, it is set in Connecticut, which is where I'm from. And she mentions a bunch of stuff in the book that is real. So it's kind of cool. Like when you're reading through the book and she mentions some place that you've been or some place that you know exists in Connecticut. So I think that's pretty cool. So it's set in Connecticut and she is kind of like a little amateur sleuth, and she's attempting in the first book to solve the disappearance of Andy Bell in her hometown of Fairview. Well, this is the second book where Pip has now come back and started a true crime podcast called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder podcast. And in this one, she is helping out a family friend and their family attempt to find a missing person. I'm not going to say too much more than that. It's super cute. I don't want to give anything away. This was really good. And this might be a hot take, like a controversial opinion, but I think I liked this one more than the first one. Now, I did read the first one over a year ago, so my memory is a little bit fuzzy on that. But this was really good and surprised me. I gave this a 4.25 stars as well. It was really, really, really good. I love Pip. I loved her in the first one. She's a really great character. You do get a little bit more angst in this one. You did see a little bit more maturity and like she's getting older and like sowing her oats in Pip in this book. I'm trying to think, once again, it's been like a year. So there was a little bit more like coarse language in this one. And it definitely felt like the writing style has evolved and like kind of matured a bit. The first one was definitely YA. This one, I think it's still YA, but it's definitely starting to go a little beyond YA. The writing has definitely gotten a little different in this one. I really liked it. And I love Pip and I love the characters. Can we just say something that I don't hear people talk about enough? Robbie Sin, is it Sing or Singe? He's like a top tier book boyfriend. Why is he the greatest boyfriend that I've read in a long time? He's so supportive. He's so understanding. He's so unconditionally loving. He really adores Pip. I just really, really, really like Ravi in this book. And I really highly suggest you pick up the series because it is very cute. I don't have my Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I do have the third one down here. But I really think you should pick it up. They're cute. They're fast reads. The other thing that I really like about this that I think I should mention, this is what I consider like mixed media writing style, meaning there will be just straight word chapters, but then between the chapters, you get, well, here, for example, you get this, which is like the transcript of a podcast, or you get this, which is like a copy of the wanted poster or the missing poster. Or when she's talking about, let's see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. When she's talking about like where a perp was or where a suspect was or where the missing person was, you might get this. So in between you get like a little floor plan, and something about that like mixed media style of chapters, articles, text messages, floor plans. It just makes it so interesting to read. It's so good. I really like this writing style. So there you go, guys. Those were the 8 books that I read in May. I am so honored that any of you would be watching this. I'm so excited that I just filmed my first wrap-up video. I am so beyond thankful that you guys are here watching. I cannot wait for you to see what I have next because I think this next video is probably going to be my favorite video that I've made. So I hope that you like, subscribe, and comment below what is your favorite book that you read in the month of May. And I will see you in the next one.